Hello, my name is Luigi Lerma. For my cultural narrative, I'll be describing a personal identity, which is a true hobby of mine, which is fitness, specifically bodybuilding and powerlifting. And for today's reading, I will be discussing a story written by James Lincoln Collier called "Anxiety Challenged by Another Name." Between my sophomore and junior years at college, a chance came up for me to spend the summer vacation working on a ranch in Argentina. My roommate's father was in the cattle business and he wanted Ted to see something of it. Ted said that he would go if he would take a friend, and he chose me. The thought of spending 2 months on a fabled Argentine pampas was exciting. Then I began having second thoughts. I had never been so far from New England, and I had been homesick a few and and I had been homesick my first few weeks at college. What should what should be like what would it be like in a strange country? What about the language? And besides, I promised to teach my younger brother to sail that summer. The more I thought about it, the more the dam daunted me. I we I began waking up in nights of sweat. In the end, I turned down the proposition. As soon as Ted asked someone else to go, I began kicking myself. A few weeks later, I went home to my old summer job, unpacking cartons at the local supermarket. Feeling low, I had turned down something I wanted to do because I was scared and had ended up feeling depressed. I stayed that way for a long time, and it didn't help when I went back to college in the fall to discover that Ted and his friend had a terrific time. I'm not, of course, talking about severe states of anxiety or depression, which require medical attention. What I mean is the kind of anxiety we all call stage fright, butterflies in the stomach, a case of nerves, the feelings we have at a job interview, when we're giving a big party, when we have to make an important presentation at the office. And the kind of depression I'm referring to is the downhearted feeling of the blues when we don't seem to be interested in anything, when we can't get going and seem to have no energy. I was confronted by this sort of situation by the end of senior year. As graduation approached, I began to think about taking a crack at making my living as a writer. But one of my professors was urging me to apply to graduate and aim for a teaching career. I wavered. The idea of trying to live by writing was scary, a lot more scary than spending a summer on the pampas, I thought. Back and forth I went, making my decision and making it. Suddenly I realized that every time I gave up the idea of writing, that sinking feeling went through me. It gave me the blues. The thought of graduate school wasn't what depressed me. It was giving up on what deep in my gut I really wanted to do. Right when I learned another lesson to avoid that kind of depression meant inevitably having to endure a certain amount of worry and concern. Even as a child, we discover this that when we try to expand ourselves, say learning to ride a bike out for the school play, or going out for the school play. Later in life, we get butterflies when we think about when we have our first child or uprooting the family from the old hometown to find a better opportunity halfway across the country. Anytime anytime it seems that we set out aggressively to get something we want, we meet with anxiety, and it's going to be it's going to be our traveling companion at least part of the way into any new adventure. When I began writing magazines, I was frequently required to interview big names, people like Richard Burton, Joan Rivers, sex authority William Masters, baseball great Dizzy Dean. Before each interview, I would get butterflies and my hands would shake. At the time, I was doing some writing and music, and one person I particularly admired was the composer Duke Ellington. On stage and on television, he seemed like the very model of the confident, sophisticated man in the world. Then I learned that Ellington got stage fright. If the highly honored Duke Ellington, who had appeared on the bandstand, some 10,000 times over 30 years had anxiety attacks, who was I to think I could avoid them? I went to doing some frightening interviews, and one day, as I was getting on a plane for Washington to interview columnist Joseph Alsop, I suddenly realized to my astonishment that I was looking forward to the meeting. What happened to those butterflies? Well, in truth, they are still there, but there are fewer of them. I had benefited, I discovered from the process psychologists called extinction. If you put an individual in an anxiety provoking situation often enough, he will eventually learn that there is nothing to be worried about. Which brings us to cholera, which is my basic rule. You never eliminate anxiety by avoiding the things that caused it. I remember how my son Jeff was when I first began to teach him how to swim at the lake cottage where we spent our summer vacations. He resisted, and when I got him out the water, he sank and sputtered and wanted to quit, but I was insistent. And by summer's end, he was splashing around like a puppy. He had extinguished this anxiety the only way he could, by confronting it. The problem, of course, is that is the one thing to urge somebody else to take on those anxiety producing challenges. It is quite another to get ourselves to do it. For some years, I was offered a writing assignment that would require 3 months of travel through Europe. I had been abroad a couple times on the usual. If it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium trips, but I hardly could claim to know my way around the continent. Moreover, my knowledge of foreign languages was limited to a little college French. I hesitated. How would I be how would I unable to speak the language, totally unfamiliar with local geography or transportation systems, set up interviews and do research? It seemed impossible, and with considerable regret, I sat down to write a letter begging off. Halfway through, a thought, which I had subsequently made into another corollary to my basic rule, ran through my mind. You can't learn if you don't try. So I accepted the assignment. There were some bad moments, but by the time I had finished the trip, I was an experienced traveler. And ever since, I've never hesitated to head for even the most exotic of places without guides and even advanced bookings, confident that somehow I will manage. The point is that the new, the different, is almost by definition scary. But each time you try something, you learn, and the learning piles up. The world opens to you. I've made parachute jumps, learned to ski at 40, flown up in the Rhine in a balloon, and I know I'm going to go on doing such things. It's not because I'm braver or more daring than others. I'm not, but I don't let the butterflies stop me from doing what I want. Accept anxiety as another name for challenge, and you can accomplish wonders. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to share this reading was because before, one of the biggest steps that I had to take before actually going to the gym was having the willingness to go to the gym. I'd say about when I first started, which was back in ninth grade, I was extremely skinny. I was afraid of being judged. Going to the gym was literally something that I had wanted to do, but it was something that I had genuinely feared because I cared of what I had thought others were thinking. And it was so bad to the point where, like, literally when when I first got my membership, I didn't even go for the first 2 weeks. So after I was able to overcome the anxiety and started going to the gym, it was probably one of the best decisions of my life. I honestly probably wouldn't have discovered my true hobby if I didn't overcome that. And I think that's what's really important to the story, where when you do want to pursue the things that you really want to do in life, to just don't turn away from it. You gotta face it, and you have to go through it. And with that, you'll be able to find true happiness. So some of the positives that have been associated to me with the gym is one, it's something that I genuinely look forward to every single day I wake up out of bed. Two, dieting's it's really taught me a lot about nutrition, what foods to stay away from and what foods to eat. Three, like it's an actual coper, like when you're feeling down, just hitting the gym, it's like a good form of distraction. And then finally, I'd have to say is all the friends that I made at the gym, all the people that I met. I wouldn't be here if I didn't, you know, if I didn't start working out. So yes, that will be concluding everything for today. I basically shared a story about overcoming anxiety and how my experience of it has helped me grow as a person. And one of my biggest takeaways from my experience is, to just take the risk or you will end up losing the chance. Thank you very much.